Health with Paul Rosen.
Our diets, our Western diets in America are just really, you just don't realize how poor they really are.
What would you say to others who would like to feel better?
Sometimes you need to find the instruction. That's where the testing and everything comes in, because without that knowledge, there's no way I could have got to the point where I'm at today.
Straight talk about health.
And then I start preaching and telling them what I've been doing. And this guy named Paul Rosen has changed my life.
With your host, Paul Rosen. By the way, the information contained in this program is not approved by the FDA, nor intended to treat, diagnose, or claim to cure any medical condition or disease as defined by Western medicine. However, skilled practitioners of many disciplines have found nutrition response testing to be a highly reliable supportive technology for assessing the health and fitness of the body's functional system.
The glycemic index, Paul, according to Harvard Health, is a value assigned to foods based on how slowly or how quickly those foods cause increases in blood glucose levels. That's the official definition.
There you go.
So if it has a high sugar content, basically, and releases that sugar quickly into your system, it's high on the glycemic index.
And you pulled that right off the web. So
I did, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
the web's a valuable tool.
Yeah. So, generally speaking...
Oh, by the way, I see Ariana Grande is engaged. Anyway, the web's a valuable tool. The web is a valuable tool. Okay. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
Our current events, social
there
page.
We go.
You know, there's no way more effective than to listen to someone who has the diabetes and who was overwhelmed by not just the prescription medications they were taking, but the side effects that they were taking, and noticing that the quality of their life was simply spiraling downward. Patty C. heard about me. I think she heard about me from the radio. I'm not sure, but either way, she heard about me, and she decided to finally make the decision and change her life forever. And I thought we'd start to experience what one person's adventure back to good health was like.
Okay, let's hear Patty C's story, beginning with this.
How did you hear about nutrition response testing in the first place?
Well, I've been hearing a lot of things and reading a lot of books throughout the years, and I happened to turn on your radio program one Sunday morning, and you were talking with a patient, and a lot of things he described were things that I was feeling. We were both about the same age, and I've tried many, many different things and decided, why not go ahead and call your toll-free number and go listen to one of your talks and see what it's all about.
So you said you tried many, many different things. What?
Weight Watchers, and then years ago Nutrisystem, but I gained it all back. I never really tried diet pills. I've tried some exercising, and just things weren't working, and I go in and think, well, this food's good or that food's good, and then that wasn't working, and then I would just quit, give up, and then thought, what am I going to do? I just happened to listen to your program one Sunday morning.
It sounds like, so many stories out there, exactly the same. Now, so what you're describing is your major focus was weight loss.
Right, initially.
Yeah, initially. And yet, you're a diabetic.
Yeah, and I never even took that into account with the high blood pressure, too, that was part of the problem. It's like, well, maybe something different's got to work for me.
Isn't that wild? I mean, I tell you, I have that happen so often where people sort of have a focus. I want to get rid of the skin rash, or my hair is falling out and I want to stop that, or I'd like to lose weight and I'm not losing weight, and yet the foundation of the health of your body is crumbling dramatically.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling like too.
And you had other symptoms as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I had high blood pressure and with the diabetes as well. And I just wasn't sleeping well. I've got sleep apnea. Acid reflux was bothering me a lot at night. Leg cramps were really kind of getting me. 2 or 3 times I'd get up in the middle of the night with bad leg cramps, and I figured I've got to do something to try to figure out what's going on. And every time I go in the doctor's office, well, here, take this pill or take that pill. Well, that's not working.
Yeah,
long term.
And you had like leg and feet swelling as well.
Oh yeah. That was big time.
Yeah, that was big time. And of course you had body pain.
Right, lower back, my neck,
Right.
Shoulders.
Right. So here's this whole laundry list of ailments or symptoms anyway.
Yeah.
And the thing on your mind is weight loss. How common do you think that is out there?
Very, very common, because I hear all my coworkers talk about it all the time. I've got to lose weight to take care of it, and yet they were still kind of in the same boat as me.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like looking like you're in a boat with a a giant hole in the hull, taking on water like nobody's business, but you notice that the boat needs a paint job.
Yes, exactly. And then a couple of my doctors said, well, take this diet pill, and then my blood pressure would start to go up. I said, well, that's not working.
Meanwhile, you're being plied with all different kinds of drugs.
Right,
exactly.
Drugs
like what sort of drugs? Drugs for what?
My high blood pressure, was taking benazepril, and then with I was on 4 different types of diabetes medication, and with your help, I've dropped one of them, but Actos and metformin and Byetta, that's taken by injection, and another HCT along with the high blood pressure medication, because my legs were swelling up, but then it seemed like the problem got worse. So it's like I was taking a double dose of that.
Right. So anyway, medication upon medication upon medication. And symptoms are basically with the medication only, you're improving dramatically?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I don't have my leg cramps.
No, with the drugs. We're not talking about on the program yet. So with the drugs, you're improving dramatically? Of course, the answer to that question is no.
No,
you're not. You're managing your symptoms with the drug. Yeah. But basically, you're going nowhere.
Exactly.
You're going nowhere. And if you look at the side effects of the drugs that you were taking, did you ever go back and take a look and see what the side effects are of some of these medications?
Yeah. In fact, one of my endocrinologist of my diabetes doctor wanted to get me on cholesterol medication, even though my cholesterol was pretty good. I started taking it, and all of a sudden I noticed I had horrid cramps in my legs and my arms, and I looked at the side effects on this and started looking at potential liver damage, long term. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't take that anymore.
Well, there we go with the side effects again from drugs. Is somebody with diabetes or somebody, Paul, diagnosed with diabetes necessarily somebody who has issues with cholesterol?
Well, that's usually an indication that the body is becoming insulin resistant.
The fact that your cholesterol is going haywire,
yeah.
it's rising. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that definitely would be something you should be concerned about then in terms of it being a symptom of diabetes.
Absolutely. Anybody who's noticing that their blood pressure is rising, that their A1C is rising, that their cholesterol is rising, that their triglycerides are rising, you are headed in the direction of getting the label of diabetes. Remember here, we're just talking about a label, right? We're talking about a condition that has been artificially defined. Diabetes is an artificially defined condition utilizing various factors. So just because you don't have or haven't been given that label doesn't mean you're well on the way to creating that condition. Diabetes is a condition, especially type 2 diabetes, adult onset, is a condition that you ate your way into. That's right, folks. You ate your way into being a diabetic. Well, the good news about that is if you ate your way in, then is it possible to eat your way out? And the answer to that question is yes, with guidance. You give me any willing diabetic. Beginning with type 2 diabetes. Now, I can help also reduce the amount of insulin level that type 1 diabetes are using, which, as I indicated to you earlier, could do nothing but increase the quality of their life. But you give me any type 2 diabetic, willing to change their life, specifically directed by me, utilizing the nutrition response testing technology, and we can turn their life around.
Are most of the diabetics you happen to deal with overweight, or is there a range of people who come in? Because apparently one of the symptoms of diabetes can be dramatic weight loss.
Yeah, it totally varies across the board. Thin, thick, short, tall, doesn't really matter. And the quality of your life, I mean, is slowly being chipped away at. This is happening. If you're experiencing any type of, or if you've been given the label of diabetes already, it's just amazing how much people will tolerate. Call it the dimmer switch of health. Just watch it being turned down.
Well, speaking of quality of life and symptoms, and those symptoms being so general, you may not recognize them as being indicators of diabetes. These include increased thirst, increased hunger, dry mouth, fatigue, blurred vision, headaches, and so on and so forth. But again, Paul, as you said earlier in the show, though those things may apply as symptoms of diabetes, they also apply to many other things. They're just too general, I think, really, to pinpoint as being symptoms of that particular condition.
Yeah, diabetes, like thyroid conditions, are in a similar category, or at least similarly experienced by people, in that most people will experience the symptoms of thyroid problems or diabetes problems before they ever get diagnosed with the in the case of thyroids, Hashimoto's or Graves', in the case of, blood sugar issues, diabetes. And so this process of degeneration generally occurs over decades. And a lot of damage is done during that process, and people really don't understand it. Some of the latest research is showing that mental acuity, including the ultimate diagnosis of Alzheimer's, has to do in some part to insulin sensitivity. Turns out that the pancreas is not the only gland that produces insulin. The brain produces insulin as well. And so when you become resistant to your own insulin, when we say resistant, I guess a visual would be, folks, for you to, have you ever driven past a bakery?
Yeah, more than once.
Right.
And, I think you're talking about maybe the sensations we may get.
The smell is just so alluring. It's so attractive, right? But if you actually get out of the car, walk into the bakery, that smell that attracted you disappears. You no longer can sense it in that way.
But why is that?
Because your senses become overwhelmed. Your sense of smell becomes overwhelmed, and it no longer is capable of differentiating. It's overwhelmed. Same thing happens with insulin sensitivity.
I wonder if in a way your body is betraying you at that point, because it's saying, okay, you can no longer smell that delicious food, so now you must eat a dozen maple bars in order to experience the full extent of
a lot of it is confusion, because when you become sensitive to your own hormone signalers, right? Because those signalers are what tell your body, organs, glands, etc., what to do and what not to do. Then yes, of course. I mean, it's like anything. Overwhelm basically undermines normal function.
Well, overwhelming and also maybe making certain sensations too familiar is what I'm thinking. Does your body start to fail to recognize certain things, maybe especially as you age?
Well, that too. But the overwhelm is, the sensitivity, the sensitivity to these very necessary hormones is reduced.
In terms of type 2 diabetes, is that a lesser form of diabetes? Would it be fair to call it that?
No.
But it is more common, right?
Insulin dependent, yes. It's more common amongst people. Type 1 diabetes. These things are, again, they're categories which are artificially separated by certain describing factors, where a type 1 diabetic is considered basically to be a person who is not capable of producing enough insulin. Somehow there's an autoimmune condition which disengages the pancreas's ability to produce insulin, or doesn't have enough insulin producing cells, or that type of thing. That's type 1. Type 2 is where you have had a perfectly normally functioning pancreas at some point, and then it stops functioning normally.
So in terms of that, maybe in particular type 2 diabetes, pancreas related, is it true that any kind of physical activity can help you get rid of that condition?
The physical activity helps to burn, your stored energy, your stored fat, which of course makes sense in terms of what causes it in the first place, right?
Right.
So if that's happening, then you're sort of reversing the chemistry. Instead of storing fat, you're burning fat. Having said that, if you don't eliminate the driving force, which is the consumption of concentrated sweeteners, your ultimate outcome will be considerably less than if you did what's necessary. And that's eliminate, and we're talking about diabetics now, that's eliminating all grains, fruit, and sugar. Yes, all grains, all fruit, and all sugar. No questions asked.
One more note, you can get a free chapter of Paul Rosen's book, The Missing Piece. Just go to his website, acunatural.com, acunatural.com, and fill out the dialog box that pops up. Rest assured, no information you provide will ever be shared with anyone else. So, what are you waiting for? Get going on your personal road to wellness today.